save you.
From the Terminator that was sent back to kill me, I know, but we already took care of him.
I've been waiting for you.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you another misunderstood movie review. Now, after recently doing a misunderstood review for Terminator Salvation, the Christian Bale one, it got me thinking about the Terminator franchise, and I think it's fair to say probably every single Terminator sequel from the second one onwards has been largely deemed a failure, even if they've been kind of successful at the box office in some aspects. But I think really this one and Terminator Dark Fate have received an awful lot of backlash from fans of the franchise and all that kind of stuff. And this one, I think while it did make money, it just didn't make enough money, if you like, for it to kind of be considered a financial success. Because essentially there were two more sequels greenlit before this film even came out. And the reason two more sequels are greenlit is because if they didn't carry on making them, then the rights would go back to James Cameron, which is what happened because they didn't make any more after Terminator Genisys. The rights went back to James Cameron and he got involved with Terminator Dark Fate in 2019. So this time around then, in Terminator Genisys, this kind of plays around with alternate timelines. Very similar to Star Trek in 2009, which I think was a little bit of an inspiration for this. You know, how Star Trek kind of created its new, like the Kelvin timeline. This film kind of creates a whole new timeline. Now, we see at the beginning of this film, we see John Connor, Kyle Reese, and everybody else basically winning the war. And we get to see that point where John Connor sends Kyle Reese back in time, as we have become accustomed to in previous Terminator films. However, just as he's being sent back in time, Kyle Reese, to protect Sarah Connor, he sees John get attacked by what appears to be some form of Terminator or something connected to Skynet. Once he gets back to 1984, the film then feels very retro in a sense of it gives us many scenes that we see in the original Terminator from 1984. We see Arnold Schwarzenegger going back in time. And even though it's a CGI face, the body itself was actually an actor who was cast because he had a similar physique to Arnold back in the 80s. And then Arnold's face was kind of CGI'd on. So we get to see the whole beginning of the original 1984 Terminator, and then they kind of flip it on its head. Sarah Connor is indeed not a helpless waitress. She is already a seasoned warrior. And she has a Terminator that has essentially raised her from being a child, who she calls Pops, obviously played by Schwarzenegger. Kyle Reese has trouble keeping up with what is actually going on here. And they basically figure out that rather than go to 1997, because basically they have built their own like time machine to jump forward in time, rather than go to 1997 and stop Judgment Day, Kyle basically says, no, we have to go to 2017 because it's changed now. Somehow the timelines have been changed by what Skynet has done to John Connor, and there is a new Skynet called Genisys. So they are convinced to go to 2017. Once they get there, they're arrested and they are saved, seemingly, by what appears to be John Connor. But in actual fact, it's not. It's another new and improved Terminator. And then they've all got to basically stop this new Genisys from coming online and preventing another Judgment Day. Right. What are my thoughts on Terminator Genisys? Well, the first thing I want to say is, I suppose, I can understand some of the frustrations, if you like, that people have towards this film. Absolutely, I can understand it. You know, it's as Doctor Who would say, and ironically Matt Smith is in this, You know, it all gets a bit timey-wimey and all that kind of stuff, and gets a bit confused, and it plays around with the canon, and it does this and it does that. And for me, I've always been quite a tolerant film watcher. You know, I'm not one of these that will watch a film, any film really, and start stamping my feet and have a paddy because I don't get what I want from the film. I will generally roll with the punches and go with it, and there might be some decisions I don't necessarily agree with, but if I come out of the film fairly entertained, then I can accept a lot. I'm also very similar with gaming sort of thing. I'm quite a tolerant gamer as well. Now, if this had come out years ago when I was maybe a bit younger, I might have been a bit more frustrated with it. But it came out at a time of life where I was, you know, pretty chilled about it, if I'm being honest. And I thought there were aspects of this film that was really, really fun and creative. The whole flipping the original 1984 Terminator on its head at the beginning, you know, having those very familiar scenes. I thought that was very, very clever, and I thought they did that really, really well. And I thought it was a great start to the film. Very, very good start to the film. I think there are things here, I think, that they kind of were the arbitrators of their own doom in a lot of ways. Because we all know one of the things that contributed to the hatred towards this film was that famous trailer. The trailer where they revealed that John Connor, and sorry guys, spoiler alert, yeah, John Connor is actually the Terminator, as we find out in this film. And they went and showed that in the trailer, and I cannot figure and understand why they would do that or why they did do that. It was a horrific decision, and I hope, you know, heads rolled in regards to that decision, because it ruined the film for many, many people. It absolutely did. But there's no getting around it. I thought the action in this film was superb. I thought it was really nicely done. I thought Arnold here was flawless as the Terminator. I think he did a brilliant job playing like the older Guardian Terminator, which it was apparently his natural hair colour as well in the film, and it wasn't like he didn't dye his hair grey or anything. It was naturally grey. He left it naturally grey. I thought he's just brilliant in this film, Arnold. Let's talk a little bit about the casting of Emilia Clarke and Jai Courtney. Now, I've never been a fan of Jai Courtney. I just think he's a Poundland Sam Worthington, and Sam Worthington ain't much in my books. I don't understand how around this time and beyond, how he kept getting cast in fairly big movies, Jai Courtney. I just don't get it. He doesn't feel like Kyle Reese at all. I could tolerate him here in this film, but it was poor casting. And Emilia Clarke, as much as we love Emilia Clarke, I mean, she's becoming a national treasure in the UK in a lot of ways, and she was massively popular at the time, obviously because of Game of Thrones. Did her casting work as Sarah Connor? Not brilliantly, no. And when you consider as well that I think Brie Larson and Margot Robbie screen tested for the role. I think there's another couple as well-known names. Any of them will probably have been better than Emilia Clarke. I would argue. She's not horrific or anything. She's not a bad actress. She just doesn't portray that Sarah Connor strength, that we got, that Linda Hamilton was so brilliant at. And Jason Clarke as John Connor. Did that work? Again, no, not really. But I suppose what you're supposed to do, in a sense of Christian Bale turned down the opportunity to reprise his role as John Connor. So they had to kind of rethink it. Even though the film would have been very, very similar, it would have been a sequel to Terminator Salvation rather than a reboot of after that sort of thing. And I think that would have been cool to have Christian Bale return as John Connor and be the villain as well. That would have worked for me if they'd have you know, I'm not sure giving it away in the trailer clearly. Um, so I do understand a lot of people's frustrations with this film, but I think if you kind of go into this film and get rid of your baggage, there is definitely a fun, entertaining film here. I rewatched this last night, and I rewatched it with my wife, and we had a lot of fun watching this again. And it's a good 2, 3, maybe 4 years since I last watched this one. Maybe 3 years. Maybe I watched it around the time of Dark Fate, I think, to get ready to go and see that at the cinema. And I remember at the time as well, when this came out, and this caused a bit of a stink. James Cameron endorsed this film. I remember seeing quotes from him in magazines and all that kind of stuff, saying that he thought the film was brilliant and really enjoyed it, so on and so forth. And then people came out afterwards calling him a fraud and all this kind of stuff. I'm sorry, but maybe he did what I'm suggesting some of you guys do, you know, to give this film a second chance. Get rid of your baggage, go in and just enjoy it for what it is. Don't take this film, or films in general, too seriously. You know, there is a good film here. There is an entertaining film here. Is it a little bit messy? Of course, it's a little bit messy. Is some of it a bit silly? Some of it is a bit silly. Does some of it make no sense? Absolutely, some of it makes no sense. But you know, I don't necessarily go into a Terminator film wanting to come out of it thinking, yeah, there's no plot holes here. All of that made perfect sense. I want to come out of a Terminator film feeling pretty entertained, and I've certainly got that here for the most part. I think they could have been done better with the casting. I think the writing could have been a bit tighter, because there are some fantastic ideas here. There really are some fantastic ideas in this film. They aren't all fully realised, but there are some good stuff going on. So yeah, that is my argument for Terminator Genisys. I'm sure some people in the comments will be saying things like, "Oh, this film's terrible, don't like it." But I hope there's going to be some comments as well from some of you guys that actually, like me, actually think there's a fairly decent film here if you kind of can get rid of the negativity maybe surrounding the film. Unfair negativity, in my opinion. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed checking out this misunderstood movie review. Give me some suggestions in the comments what you think. What are your favourite misunderstood movies? And if I agree with you, I might do one of those as well. Right, thanks for watching, guys.